悪霊退散.
I just finished watching Invincible Season 3 and it was crazy. The last video that I made talking about Invincible Season 3, I was really focusing on OmniKid and what seemed to be his turn to the dark side. Now, simultaneously while watching Season 3, I was also watching a video on YouTube that explains the comics. And what's interesting is the difference in between how characters are portrayed. OmniKid particularly, he is a lot more evil and like not even evil, it's just heartless. Like he doesn't have that humanity in him, and it's emphasized so much more in the comics. But I can also see how they not only tweaked it, but they made it fit better and like be more realistic in the show. But also Mark at the end of it all said he was right. How many episodes are we in? How many seasons are we in? How many returning villains? Mark is locking up all of these criminals and they're back out on the street. That elephant guy, the evil scientist, Doc Seismic, so many reoccurring villains. And at this point, the jails that is holding them is pretty much incapable. And so it's crazy to see that Mark is finally like, okay, I'm going to kill anyone who's like, doing too much. Like they threaten this person, they do that, they're gonna pay the price. The way that they ended it there is so interesting because it's kind of like the same way with season 2, where at the end of it, Mark was like, okay, I'm done doing a lovey-dovey thing with Amber and trying to like be like a college student. Like now I'm gonna lock in. Now I'm gonna get stronger and prepare myself. And he did that. But now he's like, okay, I'm strong, I'm capable. He went 101 with a Viltrumite, right? One of the most feared conquests, right? So he locked in and he got stronger, but now he's going to get serious. And see, here's the thing as well, to where Mark has beaten multiple different people and he's quote unquote killed them, but then they're coming back to life. And it's like, how many times will this happen before he really like, okay, I'm going to throw you into the sun or something? You know what I mean? Like, I get Mark isn't that brutal of a person, but we're watching this slow transformation into that because all of his enemies are, one, returning, they're getting more villainous, but then two, they're multiplying. One of the best moments of this season was definitely with Powerplex. That episode was crazy because you get where he's coming from. That's the thing. Like, he's not just like a psycho villain. Like, you really understand where he's coming from with like why humanity is allowing Invincible and Mark, same person, right, to do all of these different things. He's kind of getting a free pass, but he does really see like how much they need Mark, right? He doesn't see like that there's a Viltrumite empire out there, and Mark is kind of the only thing that's kind of holding them off for now. Right. So that's why Mark is kind of like allowed to do all of these things, because they kind of have to allow him. But it's still just cool to see see it from his perspective and understand where he's coming from. And then also the voice acting, the emotions and everything that the character was displaying was top notch. But then also, with that being said, if we then jump back over to the next episode where they're talking about the Invincible War, Angstrom teleports all of these different Invincibles into the universe and promise them whatever they want. Girlfriend, their mom returning, expansion of the Viltrumite Empire. He makes all of these promises and he only asks one thing in return: to, one, destroy everything, make people hate Invincible, but then two, they eventually want to lure Invincible to them and basically torture him, do diabolical things, and then eventually probably kill him, right? But that doesn't happen. They all get sick of him and then they try to attack him. He sends them to an alternate dimension where basically they're going to stay there, you would assume, and then die. But what's really cool about that is how you see Mark kind of like fighting all of these different versions of himself, and you can just get a glimpse of what he could have been if things went slightly different. Like, I really like the one Invincible who was like, you wouldn't even be a slave in my empire. That part was crazy, bro. I was like, that's fire. This show's going crazy. What I thought was pretty interesting as well was the outcome for Engstrom. Now, it seems like he's going to be reoccurring. He's going to show up again in the future, but just how he made the deal with the, evil scientists, and he made him a new body, they enhanced him and whatnot, but also they put these fail safe in him to control him. And if he goes rogue, which he does, right? He's not trustworthy. They can shut him down. They can put a block on him. That was so interesting because this show just constantly throw ideas at you that you didn't even consider. When I watch Invincible, I love the show. And after I'm done watching it, sometimes I think about the boys and how monumental of a fall off that show was, because they had the same level of potential. But what I really like about Invincible, where the boys fall through, is that Invincible is like continuing to develop the plot. They're making huge commitments to the story. Characters are dying. Characters are making sacrifices. Things are happening. Each season is throwing new problems at the characters and they have to overcome. The characters are in different mindsets, doing different things. Where the boys, it's just like the same thing recycled over and over and over. And all of those characters are causing Homelander so much problems and so many issues. You would just have to wonder, like, why is he not just going over there, flying over and just bodying all of them? And it's that kind of stuff that really pulls you out of the show. But with Invincible, you were locked in. Like when a Viltrumite shows up, you know that danger is certain. When Conquest flies out of the sky and he's like, stand up, worm, like that was crazy, because you know danger. You know they're gonna fight. Marcus is gonna work his way out of it. And I like that they showed that as well. While he was fighting Conquest, Conquest was beast. He was going crazy. And Mark thought, he was like, yeah, I really need something to punch right now, right? And he thought he was just gonna beat him up like a piece of cake. They're fighting, and Conquest is just putting the work on Mark. And then Mark eventually like sees like, okay, this is getting crazy. And he's like, all right, hold on, let's talk. And Conquest is like, talk? Nah, no talking. And he continues to beat him down. That is what I'm talking about. That is fire, because I hate that. I hate when like shows locked in and then the characters like stop to like talk and like give the characters an opportunity to like react and like catch them up. Like Conquest wasn't having none of that. The fight was so natural, was so organic. The guy was really like loving being like chaos. And then also you could talk about the wake up call for Omni Kid. He was just bodying people. He was kind of just like, he needed that wake up call. He was used to being the strongest guy out, right? He was beating up the Elephant. He was beating up all of these different, low level villains. And he wasn't really taking any like real damage in return. But Conquest of Viltrumite really showed him like, you are not on that level yet. And sometimes when someone tells you to run, you got to realize that yes, you may be smart, good memory, fast, can fly, fight, all of this stuff. Sometimes you're just outmatched and you need to get out of there. I like that he got that kind of wake up call, and I want to see how that affects him going into season 4, whether or not he's more willing to like listen. I think once he gets older, he's going to be very, very powerful, but he's just not there yet. He's still at that stage to where he can be smoked, and Conquest tried to do that, you know? Also, what I love is how Adam Eve showed up, and finally we got a deeper look into her powers. Like, she normally just summons like rectangles and circles, like she's a little kid learning shapes. But when she was fighting Conquest, she started to do like actual unique abilities where she would summon a circle, but then she would turn that circle into water to like mess up their flight path. She would make the air more dense so that he can't fly through it and hit her. Those are the kind of like atomic level manipulations that I was looking forward to. Not just like squares and circles, like that's like ridiculous. Her powers is super overpowered, even without like unlocking the ability to like, manipulate like, basically people. Just being able to manipulate like objects and stuff like that, she can still do so much, and like she rarely tap into her abilities, right? So I'm just happy to see her, one, do that, but then two, Conquest was just an absolute tank. He just bullied through all of it. He was just unstoppable. What was really crazy too, the best, I really like Conquest. Conquest was so dope, bro. The one thing that I really like about Conquest is that trauma dump he did to Mark. I gotta go watch it again and really listen to what he said there, but he was like, the other Viltrumites fear me. They don't even give me a name. I'm just Conquest. Like, he was really spitting. And then at the end of it, he was like, okay, take it to your grave. Like, what? Like, what? You just trauma dumped on the guy, and then you just was like, all right, now I'm gonna kill you. Like, dang. But it just makes you realize like how like all of these characters feel like they have their own story. Like, I feel like they could do their own spin-off show about Conquest and it would be fire. That's why I like this show so much. Comparing it once again to The Boys, in Invincible, side characters are amazing. The Mauler twins, I really hope those guys aren't gone. You know, Conquest, you know, the other Viltrumites, you know, the all of the different Doc Seismic, all of the different side characters and villains. You can literally focus a whole spin-off on any of those characters and come up with something fire. And I feel like in Invincible, a lot of the times side characters are just used as like just like something to punch. Like, they don't really have a purpose, they don't really have like, you know, different personalities, and they don't really like give any type of spice to them. They're just nothing, right? And that's how the show treats them. But in Invincible, here's why you should fear this character, here's why you should root for this character, here's why you should like this character. They really do a really good job with their storytelling, but also the way that they are, you know, depicting these characters with voice acting and writing and everything. It's crazy. And going back to Conquest, seeing that he is still alive and he is not, or he's going to be resurrected. In the comics, it said that he wasn't actually dead and it was just a body double that Cecil showed to Mark. But in the show, it basically did confirm that he died, but they're resurrecting him, something to that degree. When I first saw that, I thought they were going to resurrect him as one of those undead robot soldiers. I was like, holy smokes, that's going to be crazy, because they were already doing it to the other 4 marks that they captured. That's insane. But then too, since they are just revitalizing him normally, you have to wonder, like, he's going to break out eventually. He's a Viltrumite. He's lived for so long. Eventually, he will break out. And when Mark fights him again, it's going to be a whole different battle, because he understands how, like, he was playing around the majority of that fight, but when he breaks out, he's really going to like let loose, right? So that's really crazy that Cecil resurrected him. But then also too, I wonder what Mark is going to do, because going back to the idea of Mark not playing any games and trying to kill people who's like wronging him, Cecil came very close to that, putting that little thing in his ear. I wonder if he tried that again with Omni Kid, because, you know, he got hurt and, you know, Cecil fixed him. And the same thing with basically everyone who gets hurt and the GDA repairs them. You have to wonder if Cecil is like trying to manipulate them in any way whatsoever if they become a threat. So I wonder if that will come up in season 4. But then also what I wonder is, how will Mark reacts when he see the other versions of him turned into those robots, because he already flew off the hinges when he saw the random soldiers resurrected and turned into those monstrosities. But when he see other versions of him, basically what that says is that if he ever dies, Cecil will basically do the same thing to him. If he did it to the other versions of Mark, he will do it to him. He will do it to Adam Eve. Maybe he will do it to Omni Kid. He will do it to anyone and everyone. He really is like turning into like a villain himself. Not necessarily a villain for humanity, but a villain definitely for Mark. And I wonder how he will respond to that, because not only is the Invincible robot thing crazy, but then resurrecting Conquest, even though he's trying to get answers out of him, which I definitely get, because, you know, they don't know that the Viltrumites, there's like only 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites. They don't know that. They think it's like millions. They think it's so many of them out there. And even when you talk about only 50 pure blood is pure blood. But what about all of the non-pure blood? How many of those are out there, and how powerful are they? Because we see with Omni Kid, if you have an adult Omni Kid show up to Earth, he's going to do work, right? So even though there's only 50 pure blood, what about the others, and how powerful are they? So I get why he's doing what he's doing, but from Mark's perspective, it may not go so well. So I'm interested to see how that rivalry between those two grow, because things are only getting worse and worse and worse, which means it's better and better for us, the viewers, right? So I think this whole show is doing incredible work, bro. There's so many other different things I could talk about, but it's just far too much in this banger of a season.